Welcome to Mishnah, studying Masechet Orlah Perek Bet Mishnah Tet Vav. Over here in this Mishnah, we're going to speak about seasonings of Terumah and Kilayim that fall into a dish, and it's going to be the same outcome as last Mishnah, right? Chachamim and Rabbi Shimon again have the same argument, and it's interesting. Like, why do we even need both these Mishnayot? Because seemingly it seems to be very repetitive. Harambam will address this at the end. So Tivalin shel Terumah v'shel Kilayim. If you have seasonings of Terumah and seasonings of Kilayim, right? So the Terumah is asur to Yisrael, right? Any Zarim, anyone who's not a Kohen. Kilayim is asur to everyone. They both fall into a kederash, and they fall into a pot together. Each one on its own doesn't have the potency and the power to season, right, the pot itself, but between both of them, right, between both of them, they do have that potency, and you could go ahead and now taste it. Has enough to give off that flavor. And how do we view this this pot now, right? Do we say that it's considered they combine to make it asur, or do we say no, the terumah is okay to a kohen? So Tanakama says asur l'zarim mutar kohanim. Everyone, no one's allowed to have it, because from Yisrael's perspective, it's two things that are asur, so two isurim combined that made it, asur. But the kohanim, they are allowed to have it, right? Exactly like last Mishnah, because it's terumah, right? So the terumah stands on its own, and they just have a small amount of kilayim that fell into this pot, but it's not potent enough on its own to make the the pot asur. So that's what Chachamim said. Rabbi Shimon matir zarim v'la kohanim. Rabbi Shimon says no, it's mutar to zarim and kohanim, to everyone, because it's still it's considered two separate items, two shemot, and they're not going to combine. So why do we need this Mishnah and last Mishnah? Right, last Mishnah spoke about the same idea, just when it came to sourdough, right? To yeast and sourdough. Over here we're talking about seasonings. So why do we need both these Mishnayot? So Rambam explains that if we only had last Mishnah and we didn't have this Mishnah, I could have thought without this Mishnah that Chachamim may have allowed this, right? Because seasonings, they're different. It's not like it's, sourdough is the same exact sourdough, just one's kilayim and one's terumah. Seasonings can be different seasonings. So maybe because they're different seasonings, we'll say maybe they won't combine. Comes this Mishnah and says, Chachamim say, no, it does combine, and it's going to be asur to zarim, and, not to kohanim, but the point is asur to zarim, asur to anyone who's not a kohen. And why do we need the flip side? If we only had this Mishnah and we didn't have last Mishnah, we could have thought the opposite for Rabbi Shimon. We could have thought if we only had this Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon allows it because it's two different shemot, it's two different seasonings, right? So that's why he'll allow it. But when it comes to yeast of sourdough, which is the same exact item, maybe he would be osir on last Mishnah as well. So Kamash Balan, we also need last Mishnah. So that's why Rambam explains why we need both these Mishnayot if it's seemingly teaching us the same exact thing, right? Because each one has something nuanced, a little different, where we could have thought, right? There was reason to think that maybe Chachamim would be, would differ, Rabbi Shimon would differ between the two of them, but we see over here the fact that Rabbi Udan both these Mishnayot, that they argue in both of these cases.